The young master was practicing shooting for the first time, but accidentally injured the young duke. Yet, even though he had already offered a solemn apology, the young duke had no intention of blaming him. Even so, he was still scolded by the nobles. Still very young, he was slapped to the ground by his mother, all because he had unintentionally stepped into the nobles' circle and threatened his older brother Jilin's position. No matter how he tried to explain, he could not obtain his mother's forgiveness. It turned out that the meaning of his existence was to become a copy of his older brother. 8 years earlier, on a stormy night, a carriage suddenly drove into the slums. A beautiful noblewoman stepped down from the carriage. She was Anata, the Marchioness of the Bell family. She raised her hand, signaling the man to lead the way. I went to a lot of trouble to find her, but what do you want with that child? No sooner had he spoken than a gleaming sword was pressed against his throat. If you want to live, then lead the way obediently. The man was so frightened he did not even dare breathe loudly, and could only walk honestly in front. Before long, they reached their destination. She is right there. They saw a little girl kneeling on the ground, playing with mud. With just one glance, that beautiful golden hair was enough to make her certain that this was exactly the person she had been looking for. The man cautiously hinted about his reward. A money pouch was thrown directly in front of him. It was a huge sum of money, more than he had ever seen in his life. What happened today must remain secret. Naturally, I wish you a pleasant time. Anata instructed her subordinate to make sure the man kept his mouth shut. As you command. The beautiful Kalia, living in that den of vice, was a dazzling gem born from the mud. Anata slowly walked up to Kalia. Why are you not going inside in such heavy rain? Kalia slowly raised her head. Mother is working.
Who are you?
Hearing the word working, the corner of Anata's mouth twitched slightly. Your name is Kalia, right? You know me? Of course. Once, there was a very beautiful woman who, dragging along her heavily pregnant body, hid herself in the notorious slum known as the Ruber district. That woman had no one to rely on and could only beg along the streets and wander from place to place. She even slept beside vagrants, living in daily fear, as if she were hiding from someone. Until one day, that woman gave birth to a child on the street. That child seemed completely out of place in the foul-smelling Ruber district. That little angel had a pair of emerald-like eyes. After the season of abundance passed, it was followed by a bitter winter, and the child fell ill from the severe cold. The woman did not have a single coin, and to save her child, she could only offer herself to the village doctor. Today, 12 years later, Anata had finally found this place. I came here specially because I heard your mother is very seriously ill. Kalia anxiously grabbed the woman's skirt and pressed for an answer. Is my mother very seriously ill? What should I do? Mother. She turned around, about to go find her mother, when suddenly a hand reached out from behind and knocked her unconscious on the spot. A guard steadily caught the collapsing girl, a 12-year-old child, and yet she weighs so little. Anata's gaze instantly turned cold. She did not want to cause a disturbance, so she arranged for people to deal with the aftermath. Then what about this child's mother? Hearing that, the woman immediately flared up. In such a broken-down slum, is it not common for fires to break out? The guard immediately felt a chill run down his spine. Just kidding. I merely hope that she will not come through safely. Let us go. That is enough. And just like that, young Kalia was forced to leave her mother. The slum girl Kalia was brought into the Marquis's residence. Half asleep and half awake, she only felt softness and fragrance all around her. Half asleep and half awake, she only felt softness and fragrance all around her. Could this be heaven? A single call of child jolted her awake from her dream. What happened?
When she turned her head, she saw a pretty older sister looking at her with a face full of kinta.
Are you alright? Everything before her felt unfamiliar. Unlike the crude slums, this place was spacious and bright, exuding splendor and luxury everywhere. Excuse me, is this heaven? Betty was amused by her innocent words. You must be hungry. Eat something first. Here, it is a little hot, eat slowly. Looking at the plentiful food before her, Kalia's stomach growled loudly with hunger. That instantly made her think of her mother. A very beautiful auntie said her mother was sick. Why are you not eating? Are you not hungry? Auntie, what place is this? Where is my mother? Where is the beautiful auntie I saw earlier? Betty comforted her. Once you finish your porridge and take a bath, she will come see you. A bath?
Why?
Kalia had not noticed at all how dirty she looked. Betty stammered, unable to say a complete sentence for a long while. Just then, a burst of hurried footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. The room door was violently pushed open from outside with a loud bang. Betty, did I not tell you to inform me immediately once Kalia woke up? Kalia stared blankly at the boy before her. He was like an angel.
Hello, Kalia.
I am Jilin Bell. Kalia, you are 12 years old, right? Kalia timidly nodded. I am 15. 3 years older than you. So, I am the older brother, right? Looking at the enthusiastic boy before her, Kalia instead curled herself into a small ball. Please send me back to my mother. I did not even say a single word to her before I came, and she must be very worried. So, Kalia was missing her mother. Betty, where is Kalia's mother? Kalia also looked tearfully toward Betty, while Betty's face was full of embarrassment. Madam will tell you. Madam only instructed me to take care of the young lady's meals and bath. I almost forgot I need to take a bath. She lowered her head and looked at her dirty self, forming a stark contrast with her shining older brother. Kalia's face turned red all at once. May I take a bath? Of course. We will go right now. First the bath, then the meal. But I do not know how to bathe. Do not worry, I will help you. Betty excitedly pulled Kalia along, about to take her to bathe. But just then, a violent coughing fit suddenly came from behind them. That sound came from Jilin. Betty immediately dropped Kalia and hurried toward the young master. Jilin coughed more and more violently, vomiting mouthful after mouthful of blood. Kalia was so frightened that she clutched the corner of her clothes tightly. Betty's cries quickly drew a large number of servants. Quick, report to Lord Angle. Towels. Bring towels quickly. Before being taken away, Jilin gave Kalia a deep look. It was as if he were telling her not to be afraid. Before long, Jilin was carried away by the servants. Looking at Betty's anxious figure, Kalia slowly spoke. Will that older brother die? Hearing those words, Betty's whole body shook. When she turned around, she found Kalia clutching her skirt tightly and sobbing softly, clearly truly frightened. Betty comforted her softly. No, he will not really. Let us go take a bath first. If we wait any longer, it will be too late for bed. Okay, Auntie. Kalia tightly held Betty's large hand, as if only by doing so could she gain a little strength. That splash of crimson scattered across the bedsheets was especially glaring. Older brother, he'll be alright, right? Having just personally seen that angel-like older brother coughing up blood in great mouthfuls, Kalia, who had not yet recovered from her fear, was taken to the Marchioness's room. Faced with the scrutinizing gaze of the beautiful auntie, Kalia appeared especially cautious. She respectfully saluted and greeted Madam. Now that you are clean, you look much more pleasing to the eye. She sincerely thanked Madam for giving her such delicious food. But the person she most wanted to see right now was still her own mother. Kalia was completely enveloped by the cold aura emanating from Madam. Sensing Kalia's fear, Anata smiled and extended a hand toward her, signaling her to come over. Although she was very afraid, for the sake of seeing her mother, she still forced herself to walk over. Kalia, I am sorry. You can no longer see your mother again. Hearing this, Kalia's pupils suddenly contracted. Your mother committed a grave crime. She stole something extremely precious. For a moment, Kalia could not believe her ears at all. How could that be? Thinking that she would never see her mother again, Kalia fell completely into despair, and her eyes instantly filled with tears. Your mother stole something very precious to me, but now it can no longer be recovered. So, she ought to be punished, do you not agree? Looking at the increasingly crazed madam before her, Kalia gathered her courage and grabbed her skirt. I will help you find it back. Maybe you only misplaced it. As she said this, tears as large as beans kept falling non-stop. My mother is not a thief. As those words fell, Anata finally stopped hesitating. Maid, Betty, bring it here. An exquisite gift box appeared before Kalia, and inside it lay a sharp pair of scissors. Watching Madam pick up the scissors, Kalia's eyes widened suddenly. What Madam said next completely rewrote her life. Kallian Bell, from now on, as long as you live as Kallian Bell, both your mother and you will remain safe and sound. I guarantee it. But I am Kalia. No, from today onward, you are Kallian Bell. Short hair suits you very well too, Kallian. And just like that, before Kalia's shocked eyes, all of her beautiful golden hair was cut off. Unable to accept all of this at once, Kalia curled herself into a tiny ball, sobbing weakly. Soft-hearted Betty comforted her gently. Kalia's mother has not been punished. She is only receiving treatment, and Madam is not a bad person either. So, as long as you obediently listen, you'll be able to save Laura. Hearing the name Laura, Kalia suddenly opened her eyes. You know my mother? Betty smiled as she replied. Of course. And this is also your father's home. This was the first time she had ever heard the word father from someone else. Following Betty's gaze, she saw a huge portrait hanging prominently on the wall. Looking at that man, whose hair color and eye color were the same as hers, she suddenly remembered what her mother had once said. Your father also has beautiful light golden hair and handsome eyes like emeralds. Kalia and her father looked exactly alike. Mother, what exactly is going on? So it turned out that Kalia's appearance was only meant to make her Jilin substitute. The two of them really did look very alike. Kalia, who should have been living in the slums, at this moment appeared in the Marquis's residence as a boy. So it turned out that she was the Bell family's illegitimate daughter, only because her half-brother from the same father was gravely ill, and no one knew on which day he might suddenly die. And the enormous Bell family could not be left without an heir. Before her brother made a full recovery, she had to live as Kallian Bell. Only in this way could she see her mother again. So that was why, if the family had no heir, it would be looked down upon by the other nobles. And precisely because of this, Kalia, though a girl, was raised as a boy. Even if something really happened to Jilin, the Bell family would still have someone to inherit it. After all, She is the Marquis's child. The two of them really do look alike, but Kellyanne is perhaps a bit too beautiful. The moment she saw her father's portrait last night, she had already guessed it. Perhaps what mother stole had never been an object at all. Everything here was far too complicated. She was not sure that as long as she obediently listened, Madame would really send her back to her mother. Flowers were blooming here, and the decorations were magnificent. Everything was beyond comparison with Ruber. A sudden gunshot startled her. What happened? She looked in the direction the sound had come from and saw that not far away, a boy slowly lowered the gun in his hand. Clearly, he was very satisfied with his performance just now. After noticing that gaze, the boy suddenly turned his head. Such a handsome older brother, such a beautiful younger brother, and just like that, their gazes met in midair. At that moment, Jilin appeared from who knew where.
Kellyanne.
Kellyanne respectfully saluted her older brother, but what greeted her was a big hug. You finally came out of your room. You have no idea how worried I was. Kellyanne was hugged so tightly by him that she could barely breathe. Only then did Jilin release her and warmly introduce his younger brother to Claude. Upon hearing the words younger brother, Kellyanne suddenly pushed him away. Claude, at some point, had already walked up in front of them, very alike. Kellyanne froze for a moment, and when she looked up, she met Claude's eyes. He carefully sized up the boy before him. Then he let out a faint scoff and turned to leave. What does that mean? The boy raised the gun again. Then he pointed to his ears, signaling her to cover them. But Kellyanne did not react at all. With no other choice, Claude had to tell her to cover her ears. Although she did not know why, Kellyanne obediently did as she was told. Only then did the boy reveal a satisfied smile. Remembering the huge gunshot from just now, she fearfully covered her ears tightly. Load, aim, fire. His entire series of actions flowed as smoothly as water. Bang, bang, bang. The birds in the woods instantly scattered into flight. A faint lavender fragrance and the intense smell of gunpowder that shook the soul. That was her first impression of Claude. Now that there is suddenly an extra younger brother, do you not find him an eyesore? Why would I find him an eyesore? Because that is proof that deception once existed. Jilin placed the gun on the table and said calmly, all deception comes at a price. My younger brother Kellyanne has already paid a great deal for that deception. Neither of the two, locked in confrontation, had any intention of backing down. Anyway, I am very happy to have an extra younger brother, Claude, so you do not need to worry. Although they looked very similar on the outside, in other aspects, he was nothing like Jilin at all. Watching Kellyanne seriously practice pronunciation, Claude lightly curled his lips. This child is rather interesting. The slum girl Kalia was forcibly taken away by the Marchioness without any preparation. In the blink of an eye, she became the Bell family's young master. In order to properly serve as her brother Jilin's substitute, he desperately learned to read and studied arithmetic. But in the end, this place did not have her mother. So every day, food lost its taste, and every night, sleep would not come. Jilin also noticed that Kellyanne had grown much thinner lately. He had heard that Kellyanne was performing very well in class. It would have been one thing if Lady Bell did not praise him, but she even spoke sarcastically, saying he was inferior to her son Jilin. But Jilin did not think so. Kellyanne had only been attending lessons for a week, and being able to perform like this was already very good. He felt that his mother should not put so much pressure on his younger brother, watching her own son constantly favor an outsider. Anata immediately became furious. It seemed she could only wait until Jilin was absent to talk to him again. Kellyanne kept his head lowered the whole time, not daring to say a single word. Only after the lady left did he slowly raise his head. Looking at his angel-like older brother, he finally smiled again. Jilin also told him about how he had met Claude. It turned out that Claude was the Lord of the North, the young master of Duca Hall's family, and the two were the same age. Kellyanne only felt that the man was especially handsome and especially frightening. Jilin warmly invited him to go hunting together next time, but Kellyanne refused at once because he had never touched a gun before. It's okay. Everyone has a first time. Just then, a sudden commotion came from outside the door. Young master, the Marquis has returned. Hearing that his father had come back, Jilin sprang up from his chair at once. Father is back. By the time they hurried outside, the servants had already lined up neatly to welcome the master of the castle. Jilin had always been the apple of the Marquis's eye, and he adored this son dearly. Kalia, however, stood far away. Faced with the father before him, he felt only unfamiliarity in his heart. The Marquis also noticed Kalia, and he lowered his head in fright at once. As he felt his father getting closer and closer, his heart was instantly engulfed by unease. His father crouched down in front of him and softly called his name. Kalia timidly raised his eyes. What entered his sight was his father opening his arms and calling him over. He froze for a moment at first, then took nervous steps and slowly walked toward his father. The next second, he fell into a warm embrace. His father gently rubbed his little head, and a strange emotion instantly surged into his heart. Tears began to well up in his his eyes. Welcome back, Kalyan. What he did not know was that Kalia was already crying uncontrollably at this moment. He had clearly heard that it was a girl, but the Kalyan he saw was dressed as a boy. How could Madam let a girl pretend to be a boy? We don't need a daughter. He only needed to hold on until Jilin recovered his health. For the sake of the family, I only hope he can temporarily serve as a substitute. For the family's interests, you really are cruel. The truly cruel one is the Marquis. To think he actually developed real feelings for a maid. Originally, she had thought the Marquis was merely fooling around. She had also believed he would soon come to his senses. But just when Jilin had only just learned to run around, that woman's belly actually began to swell. Because she might be carrying a son, even the servants began to act according to her mood. And on the day Jilin had his accident, she only felt as though the sky were collapsing. She was convinced that the culprit was that woman. Because the woman was pregnant, she could only drive her out. She would never forgive the woman who had done something so excessive to her. And it was from that day on that Jilin began walking step by step toward death. What the Marquis wanted to know now was how Kalyan's mother was doing these days. But how could Anata possibly tell him? She wished that woman would die as soon as possible. Seeing this, the man bent down and soothed his wife's emotions. He swore on the family's honor that he would never forgive that woman until death. Kalia, who should have been attending tea parties in a pretty little dress, was at this moment standing alone in the snow as the young master of the Marquis' family, tasting snow. So, in order to become a qualified substitute, he had to live on as a boy. Snowflakes suddenly began to drift down from the sky. Compared with the children's excitement, the adults' expressions were utterly cold. Marilyn, let's go out. Marilyn quickly refused the princess's invitation on the grounds that it was too cold outside. In reality, she was simply afraid that staying with the princess would make her look childish. She was afraid her childish side would be seen by the young duke she admired. That little thought of hers was exposed by the princess in a single remark. Marilyn instantly became embarrassed and angry. The noisy sounds outside drew the princess's attention. As if an idle boy group had made a dazzling entrance, the princess excitedly threw herself toward the glass window. Even Marilyn, who had been acting tough, could not help but move closer as well. Her gaze quickly locked onto Claude, but that person was looking in another direction instead. Following his line of sight, a thinly dressed little boy was looking up at the sky. Everyone was curious about what exactly he was doing. It seemed like he was tasting the flavor of snow. The noble women immediately began discussing it all at once. Anata felt that he had disgraced the Marquis' family and immediately ordered the maid to take Kalyan back to his room. But the princess became interested in the little boy.
How old is he?
Faced with the princess's question, Anata immediately greeted her with a smile. 12 years old, Your Highness, 3 years younger than Jilin. At this moment, Marilyn regretted more than anything that she had not agreed to go out with the princess earlier. They clearly looked very alike, but the sharp-eyed princess still became suspicious. Is that child really a boy? Hearing this, Anata's heart tightened. She was far too beautiful. No one would doubt it even if she were said to be a girl. After living so many years, Anata had seen every kind of scene. She still said with a smile, "A lot of people say that, Your Highness." Not hearing the answer she wanted, the princess gave a cold snort and turned away, no longer looking at her. It didn't matter anyway, because in her eyes there was only brother Jilin. He really was very gentle. Seeing that the young duke had also taken Kalyan's hand, jealousy instantly surged in Marilyn's heart. Why was he clearly a boy, yet happened to be so beautiful? Claude came alone to the shooting range. He had come to keep an appointment. From far away, he could already hear the noisy bickering of the Bell brothers. The moment Kalyan saw Claude, his heart suddenly tightened. Before that, he had no idea that today's teacher would actually be the young duke. At this moment, he only felt like he was about to cry. But Claude did not care at all. He simply raised the gun and gestured with it on his own. "May I ask you a question? Why did you go taste the snow?" Perhaps he had not expected his actions to be noticed. Kalyan's little face instantly flushed red. He was just curious. Curious about what? The taste of snow? Thinking of this, Claude could not hold back and actually let out a soft laugh. Wasn't that something only street children would do? As he spoke, he handed the gun to him. While Kalyan was still hesitating, Claude had already walked behind him. "Answer me, Kalyan. Hurry up, the two of them are a little too close right now." Kalyan felt as if his heart were about to leap into his throat. At this moment, he was both nervous and frightened. His hands also began trembling uncontrollably. In his panic, the gun accidentally went off. Kalyan's pupils instantly constricted, looking at the flock of birds startled into flight in the distance, and at the young duke's hand that had not been withdrawn in time and had been burned. His mind went blank in an instant. Seeing that Claude was injured, everyone cried out in horror, "Call the doctor." But Claude only said lightly, "No need." The attendants immediately went pale. It was only a slight burn. There was no need to make such a fuss. Just then, a faint sobbing sound came from behind, and when he turned around, Kalyan was already crying his eyes out. He let out a light laugh. "I'm the one who got hurt, so why are you crying?" But Kalyan did not answer. Instead, without saying a word, he knelt in the snow and hurriedly made a snowball. His little hands were frozen red, yet he seemed to feel nothing. Claude was full of confusion. The next second, Kallian pulled over his injured hand, and that snowball was pressed against the wound. Whether from the cold or from fear, Kallian was trembling all over the moment he thought that he had hurt someone so noble and what kind of punishment he would face next. He was so frightened that he squeezed his eyes shut tightly, and only after a long while did he slowly speak. "Please forgive me.
It was all my fault."
At this time, Marilyn and the others also came over after hearing the commotion. She anxiously shoved Kallian aside and took out the handkerchief she carried with her. She took hold of Claude's injured hand. "I have already ordered the servants to fetch a doctor." Unexpectedly, Princess Rosina had also rushed over. Jilin politely greeted her. Claude did not like Marilyn and immediately pulled his hand back. Marilyn turned around and glared angrily at the person who had caused it all. "Kallian," she shouted loudly at the fool. "No matter how young you are, how could you be so careless with something as dangerous as a gun?" Kallian was so frightened that he kept stepping back. Suddenly, a large hand landed on his shoulder. "Miss, are you yelling at my younger brother right now?" But he injured the young duke's hand. As she spoke, her body also began to tremble. Jilin's face darkened, and he said word by word, "So I'm asking you, are you yelling at my younger brother?" Marilyn was instantly frightened and hurriedly admitted that she had lost her composure, then apologized to Jilin. But Jilin pulled Kallian into his arms in one motion. "The person you should apologize to is not me, but my younger brother." Then he switched to a gentle tone again. "Kallian, apologize to His Grace the young duke." Kallian nodded hard. Under Claude's gaze, he respectfully bowed to him. "I'm sorry, Your Grace." Kallian's sincere appearance made Jilin feel extremely gratified, but Marilyn still could not let it go. Just then, a crisp burst of laughter suddenly rang out. The handkerchief in Marilyn's hand also fell to the ground. Feeling that the young duke was getting closer and closer to him, Kallian suddenly raised his head. He saw Claude extend his injured hand before him once again. "Do it again." Kallian did not understand at all what the person before him was saying. Like just now, "Do it again, Kallian." That works much better than a handkerchief. He had actually injured the noble young duke by accident, even though he had already apologized with utmost sincerity. The young duke showed not the slightest intention of blaming him, and yet he was still insulted by the other nobles. But no matter how he tried to explain, he widened his round eyes, his face full of disbelief. He could not believe that his mother would say such vicious words. "You still have the nerve to cry? Unbelievable. Remember this. The only thing you need to do is stay alive. If you dare to steal Jilin's spotlight again, I will absolutely not let you off." Claude, standing outside the door, heard every single one of these words clearly. He only found it absurd. Even the victim had not pursued the matter. So, what exactly was this so-called mother getting so worked up about? Heavy snow was falling outside. Faintly, one could still hear a child's suppressed sobs. It was Kallian. He had been punished by the lady and forbidden from entering the house. At this moment, he really missed his mother. Suddenly, a dark shadow fell over him. Someone was walking over. He abruptly raised his head. It turned out to be the injured young duke. Claude crouched down in front of Kallian. Imitating what Kallian had done that afternoon, he made a snowball. He gently pressed it against Kallian's swollen cheek, and the young duke's sudden action left him overwhelmed with surprise and gratitude. At that moment, both of their heartbeats quietly quickened. "So, this is what it feels like." The trial experience ended. Claude stood up and brushed the snow from his hands. Then he turned and left on his own. In the vast back garden, in the blink of an eye, only Kallian was left again, as if that person had never come at all. After learning of this matter, the Marquis and his wife had a fierce argument. "Kallian is our child too. Slapping a child in the face is simply going too far." But Anana insisted that her punishment of Kallian was all for the sake of the Bell family. As long as he stopped making mistakes, of course, she would not hit him again. Even if it had been Jilin who had disgraced the Bell family's honor today, she would have treated him the same. The family would decline because of one child's mistake? This was simply the most absurd joke the Marquis had ever heard. He truly did not know who exactly was disgracing the Bell family. After throwing down those words, he slammed the door and left. It turned out that a diamond mine had been discovered in the northern neutral region. If the emperor had not rashly intervened, that mine should have belonged entirely to Duke Hall, and the kingdom of Gear had already begun to take action. Even if only to stop their plot, the Bell family had to support the duke in strengthening his power. A retainer suddenly came to report, "My lord Marquis, young Master Jilin is having trouble breathing because Kallian had accidentally injured the noble young duke. His mother punished him by making him kneel in the snow." And just at this moment, news came that his older brother was in critical condition. By the time the Marquis arrived, Jilin had already lost consciousness. Even using the best medicine in the Empire, it still had no effect at all. This was almost equivalent to directly sentencing Jilin to death. Just when everyone was at a complete loss, Claude appeared and proposed passing through the neutral territory to go to Gear. It turned out that the greatest holy physician, Shmitri, was there. But as far as the Marquis knew, Schmitry was the attending physician of the CGO royal family. What he did not know was that the doctor had once received Duke Hall's favor. Moreover, Claude was unwilling to lose his close friend just like this. Hearing this glimmer of hope, Anata seemed to grasp the last life-saving straw. As long as the child can be saved, I am willing to do anything. Please consider it carefully, both of you. After stepping outside, I saw Kallian standing alone in the corner. It turned out that he was not even allowed to offer his greetings.
How old are you? 10, 12.
Have you gone to the academy yet? I study with teacher Tater. All right, then we'll have to wait until you reach the upper grades before we meet again. And just like that, for years passed. On a bright, sunny morning, Kallian's hair had grown long again. His greatest pleasure was playing freely in the water. This made Betty terribly anxious. Please come out quickly, young master. The sun is so nice. How could one not go swimming? It turned out that Madame was about to return, and she absolutely must not see Kallian with long hair. At times like this, he was always especially troubled. Because he was too good-looking, the maids always fawned over him, yet he only wanted to quietly be a handsome man. Even such a small request could not be satisfied. At this moment, he thought of his brother again. After going to Gear to study, he had become a hostage, but for the sake of treatment, there had been no choice. During these 4 years, he had never received any news at all about Jilin and the young duke. But only if Jilin returned safe and healthy could he go back to the home that truly belonged to him. At this moment, a retainer came to report, "Young master, people from the academy have arrived." Simply because he was too beautiful and yet happened to be a boy. He had already become widely famous at a very young age. Even the teachers at the academy praised him greatly. Because of the matter of dressing as a boy while being a girl, the family repeatedly postponed Kallian's enrollment. But after learning that he was going to the capital to study, he could no longer sit still. "Father, I want to enroll." Under the banner of thinking for the family's honor, he smoothly obtained his father's approval. "Then I will arrange a residence for you near the academy." Kallian's eyes instantly lit up. Since the matter had already been settled, the group of teachers prepared to leave. But the inconspicuous man, with a small mustache in the crowd, quietly repeated Kallian's name over and over. In fact, the reason he insisted on going to the capital was also very simple. Ruber was in the capital, and his mother was in Ruber. This was his last chance to reclaim Kalia's life. Just as he was imagining the future, a dark shadow behind him enveloped him completely. He had just seen this man. He was the dorm supervisor who would oversee him in the future. The man's name was Eddie. At this moment, he was sizing him up with a meaningful look on his face. Kallian felt uncomfortable under his gaze. An appearance that was too beautiful always easily invited trouble. And not only among humans, but among all living beings. As he spoke, that large hand heavily rubbed Kallian's shoulder a few more times. No matter where you go, there will inevitably be people who dislike you. A pampered young nobleman like you needs to be even more careful, because she was a girl. The Marquis would not agree to let him go to the capital alone. So, he arranged for the maid Peppa to accompany him. "You wanted me to wear a dress a long time ago, didn't you? When we get to the capital, let's try it." For no other reason than that he was afraid his mother would not recognize him as a boy. The capital was both prosperous and lively. It was completely different from how he remembered it. It turned out that he had never left the Ruber region before, only because his mother had once said that the outside world was very dangerous. Before enrolling, he first had to have a school uniform made. "Wait, let me guide Kallian there. It's His Imperial Highness, the Crown Prince. Long time no see, Lord Marquis." And Kallian Bell. He invoked his father the Emperor to send the Marquis away, then personally took Kallian to have his measurements taken for clothes. The Crown Prince's act of coming in directly, without even knocking, also drew the shop owner's dissatisfaction. After all, there were other customers in the shop right now, but he said that he was only helping a lost customer find the way. "Look who's here, Claude. You haven't changed at all. Hello, Kallian." So the customer just now was the young duke. It was Kallian's turn to be measured. Claude also showed no intention of leaving at all. At this moment, however, the shop owner asked him to take off his shirt. It turned out that the shirt Kallian was wearing was too big, dignified and elegant. That was the soul of the academy uniform. Such loose clothing was obviously not suitable for him. If they kept measuring like this, he would be found out sooner or later. "Could you help walk for me?" Because this was the shop his father had recommended. Kallian naturally felt very at ease, but Claude was full of confusion about this act of drawing the curtain. Although it was very embarrassing, Kallian still took off his shirt, revealing his snow-white skin. The old shop owner was shocked on the spot. This was clearly a little girl. Fortunately, the shop owner Frank was experienced and knowledgeable. He did not expose him on the spot. He even made him a suitable shirt, compared with the suspicious attempt at concealment brought by a loose shirt. A well-fitted shirt was instead more natural and less likely to arouse suspicion. It was also the Crown Prince's first time seeing Frank care so much about a customer. He could not help teasing him a little. He also invited Kallian to visit his palace. And so, that led to the current scene. Because he could not ride a horse, he was forced to share one with Claude. Such close contact made his little face flush red with embarrassment. Seeing this, The young duke bent slightly forward. You should smile, Kallian. Don't make it look like I've kidnapped you. Kallian's face turned even redder. Why was the road to the Imperial Palace so far? It was his first time at the Imperial Palace, and he was both uneasy and nervous. The Imperial Palace really was magnificent, and those two were also his brother's friends. But Claude spoke with sarcasm, saying that he was very good at flattering others. This immediately made Kallian unhappy. Seeing this, the Crown Prince immediately ran over to smooth things over. But Claude stepped in front of him with a quick movement. So last time, the Crown Prince had also toyed with others like this. He liked all beautiful things, including men, and had even suffered great humiliation because of it. So there was no need to let others seize on that as leverage again. And besides, Kallian was far too beautiful. He would definitely become entangled in all kinds of scandals. Yet the Crown Prince looked completely unconcerned. Looking at the two of them, Kallian felt speechless. He turned around and quickly walked away. I am not flattering others. I am being considerate of other people's feelings. Your Grace, young Duke. I never thought of gaining benefits by flattering anyone. After saying that, he walked around Claude and ran off with quick steps. This chain of reactions made Claude laugh out loud directly. How interesting. Kallian and the others arrived at the Crown Prince's palace. Looking at those exquisitely delicate little desserts, her stomach growled with hunger. Claude finally could not stand it anymore. Don't just look, eat. Kallian looked proud and stubborn. I was only staring because they looked pretty, but the Crown Prince exposed him with a single sentence. You came by carriage from Kosovo, so you probably haven't eaten yet, have you? Were these two devils? Did Kallian not need to save face? Then I'll reluctantly eat one. The Crown Prince picked one up and placed it on his plate. After hesitating for quite a while, he finally took a light bite and chewed slowly. The next second, his eyes instantly lit up. How could there be something this delicious? Princess Rosina was finally getting engaged, and the person was Kallian's older brother, Jilin. Clearly, he knew nothing about it. Perhaps it was normal not to tell him anything, because an occasion like that would never invite him in the first place. Seeing Kallian's embarrassment, Claude gave a light cough. The Marchioness had always stayed in the north, so it was normal that Kallian had not received the news, simply because he was not good at riding horses. The young master was forced to share a horse with the young duke. In an instant, his little face flushed red with embarrassment. Just now, from the Crown Prince's mouth, he had unexpectedly learned that his own brother was about to get engaged. Only then did he suddenly understand. So in this family, he had always been an outsider. Claude, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke, just as he was touched that the young duke was being considerate of him. Looking at you makes me feel hungry too, so hurry up and eat. Those words sent a chill down his back. What strange things exactly were going on in this person's head? I understand. In order not to let the young duke go hungry, I will sacrifice myself a little. After saying that, he stuffed it into his mouth and started devouring it fiercely. Only then did Claude reveal a satisfied smile. Seeing Kallian eat like a little kitten, Claude's hand, which had reached out wanting to wipe him clean, changed direction halfway, and steadily pinched his chin. I am looking forward to it. Kallian Bell's fidelity will surely exceed imagination. The sky gradually darkened. Kallian left first. The noble posture he had deliberately put on earlier, and his flustered reaction when being teased. In Claude's eyes, all of it actually seemed especially cute. Wait, I actually think a man is cute? I must be crazy. This face-changing speed could be called master level. It left the Crown Prince full of confusion. It seems the young duke likes Kallian very much. The Crown Prince said bluntly that he liked all beautiful things, just as he would like Claude and Jilin. It was the same principle. Don't make things too hard for him either. Maybe just as you said, Kallian is only an imitation of Jilin, but sooner or later, he will become mine. Seeing that Claude had not spoken for a long time, the Crown Prince stood up, preparing to leave. It turned out the banquet was about to begin. This banquet was mainly for selecting a crown princess for the Crown Prince, and Claude recommended the daughter of Marquis Selby. The Crown Prince froze on the spot. Marilyn, isn't she your fiancé? Who doesn't know that you are going to get engaged to Miss Selby? At the mention of this, Claude got a headache, because he did not like Marilyn at all. After Kallian returned from the Imperial Palace, he had been feeling a little unwell. It turned out that he had eaten too much earlier and had indigestion. Since that was the case, his father did not force him to attend the banquet either. Hearing this, Kallian immediately let out a sigh of relief. He truly did not like that kind of occasion very much. After his father left, he could finally rest properly. He took off that troublesome chest binder and instantly felt as if he had come back to life. At this moment, he only wanted to get some fresh air, so he opened the window. Feeling the evening breeze and eating sweet candy, nothing could be more pleasant. His mother was somewhere on the other side of the city wall. Just as he was worrying whether his mother would still recognize him, a woman's voice suddenly came from downstairs. Looking in the direction of the sound, It was Claude and a beautiful woman. He had seen this person when he was little. She was Marilyn, the daughter of the Selby family. Shouldn't we get engaged too? Claude's face was full of reluctance. There are many outstanding men in the Empire, and there are also many men who admire you, my lady, but not a single one of them can compare to young Duke Hall. After saying that, she turned around and ran away. At this moment, Kellyan only wanted to immediately find a crack in the ground to crawl into, because it seemed that he had seen something he should not have seen. Just as he was tiptoeing and preparing to close the window and leave, the candy in his arms suddenly spilled down, and Kellyan's eyes widened in fright. The words "be careful" had just reached Claude's ears when he saw a rain of candy falling from the sky, and that familiar figure not far away. The next second, he had intimate contact with the candy filling the sky. Looking at Kellyan, the culprit who started it all, his face darkened with black lines. So you were there. But the only thing that greeted him was the bang of the window being shut. The sky instantly fell into dead silence again. Humph, this brat. In his panic, Kellyan hid back in the room, just as he was worrying whether Claude would come looking for him because of this. He saw the underwear on the floor, and his whole body froze. Claude absolutely must not discover it. At that moment, a burst of urgent knocking suddenly rang out. Turning around, he saw that Claude had already barged in. "You threw sugar all over my face, and yet you're the one hiding in your room?" At this moment, Kellyan could no longer care about anything else because that undergarment was being clutched tightly in his hand. What mattered most now was how to get rid of this undergarment. He casually came up with an excuse and threw it away with a raised hand. "Your stomach feels bad, and you can still eat candy?" "The medicine was too bitter, so I ate a few pieces." Looking at the flustered Kellyan, Claude calmly patted the sofa. "Kellyan, come here." Hearing this, his body stiffened. Had he been exposed? At that thought, he couldn't help but swallow. "I need to confirm something, so come here." But Kellyan tightly covered his collar, showing no intention of going over at all. Seeing this, Claude's gaze suddenly darkened. "You really do take me for a bad person." Actually, Kellyan simply felt insecure because he wasn't wearing any undergarment. You need to be careful of Prince Waden. He likes beautiful and dazzling things, regardless of gender or status. Don't smile casually in front of him. Keep an appropriate distance from him. Also, your voice is very pleasant. The sudden praise made his little face flush red with embarrassment. He gave a few light coughs, wanting to ease the awkwardness before him. Suddenly, it was as if he had thought of something. Claude had a figure as upright and long-limbed as a model. His sharply sculpted brows and eyes, his long and thick eyelashes, and his high nose bridge, and those thin, tightly pressed lips. His whole person carried an innate air of nobility. If the crown prince likes beautiful things, then shouldn't you, young duke, be a little careful too? Claude gently raised his brows. "Because I think you are more beautiful than anyone else." As soon as the words fell, he turned his head and ran straight into the bathroom. Even he himself didn't know why he had said something so shameful. At this moment, he only felt that his heart was about to leap into his throat. The next second, a man's laughter came from outside. It was Claude. "You really are trying to toy with me in the palm of your hand." The only response he received was the loud sound of the door slamming shut. Looking at the shirt Kellyan had thrown on the floor, he actually bent down and picked it up as if under some strange spell. Compared to himself, this shirt was simply too small. The faint lavender fragrance, wafting from it, made the corners of Claude's lips curve into a beautiful arc. At this moment, the sound of rushing water came from the bathroom. This kid really has no sense of caution at all. By the time Kellyan came out after finishing his bath, the room had already become exceptionally bright. Just as he was feeling extremely puzzled, a rustling sound came from beside his ear. When he turned his head, he saw Claude and a group of maids. Not long after, Claude stood up, preparing to leave. Then he saw Kellyan also quickly chasing after him. His smile was bright, and he looked to be in a very good mood. "I wish you a pleasant night." This made Claude somewhat unhappy inside. Only when they were parting would he show him such a lovely smile every time. But when he thought of how Kellyan had looked just after finishing his bath, this night truly could be considered a pleasant one. The beautiful Kalia, who lived in a den of luxury, had soft, lustrous light blonde long hair and a pair of emerald-like eyes. And yet, she had no choice but to live for 4 years under the identity of the young son of the Marquis's household. As it turned out, her half-brother on her father's side was gravely ill. The family needed a replacement for Jilin, and she was that unlucky person. During the 4 years her brother was abroad, no matter how many letters she sent out, she did not receive a single reply. As it turned out, the Marchioness had been secretly intercepting everything. Jilin, who missed his younger sister beyond measure, had no choice but to find a reliable helper. That man was called Ian Sigio, the third prince of the Kingdom of Gear. Over the past 4 years, They had long since become friends who could talk about anything. Jilin placed the letter into his hands and asked him to help send it to his younger sister Kalia. He had long wanted to meet the angelic little sister whom his good friend praised to the skies. All right, I'll help you deliver it to Kosovo. More accurately, I'll deliver it to your sister Kalia in person. Jilin was so shocked by the decision he made on his own that he froze on the spot. By the time he came back to his senses, there was already no sign of Ian left in the room. Under Jilin's stunned gaze, so shocked he could not speak, Ian flipped over the window and leapt down, then ran off into the distance with the letter in hand. At this moment, Anata's voice drifted over. Facing this mother who had obstructed communication between the siblings, Jilin felt as though a fishbone were stuck in his throat. Toward this prince from an enemy nation, she was actually very grateful that he could be so close to her son, but because of political reasons, Anata did not wish for Jilin to become too close to him. Although on the surface, he always followed his mother's wishes. In Anata's eyes, this son of hers was growing farther and farther away from her. In order for mother to recognize her smoothly, Kalyan had to have a set of girls' formal clothes. But because there had recently been a string of public security incidents in the capital targeting noble women, although Kalyan looked like a boy, at first glance, he could still possibly be mistaken for a young lady. Betty was not at ease about the two of them going out, but this was no challenge at all for the exceptionally clever Kalyan. She casually made up an excuse and successfully persuaded Betty. All right, then I'll go prepare the carriage, but you absolutely must be careful. But the moment she looked up, master and servant were already nowhere to be seen. At this moment, they were leisurely making their way through the bustling streets. Meanwhile, outside the Selby Marquis household, soldiers stood on high alert. As it turned out, Marilyn had fallen victim to criminals last night and was now lying in bed, unconscious. His Highness will personally lead the Imperial Guard to capture the criminal. We will certainly punish them severely, so please do not worry. The one leading the troops this time was none other than the young Duke Claude. The criminal's identity had already been confirmed. He was a revolutionary dissatisfied with the class system. Saying that he still had matters to attend to, he left ahead of the others, leaving only the crown prince standing there alone in disarray. The crowd on the streets surged noisily. They happened to pass by a candy shop. Thinking of the way Kalyan had knocked over the candy last time, the corners of Claude's mouth lifted slightly. Isn't it just a little candy? Was that really worth making that kind of expression? But the young master who had been walking suddenly froze in place. It turned out that he seemed to have seen a familiar person, but this did not affect their enthusiasm for shopping. What Kalyan wanted to buy most, sure enough, was still clothes. Isn't our game in need of a dress? The young master stared absent-mindedly at the women's clothing in the display window. If I buy this for Betty, will she be happy? A noble young lady passing nearby drew his attention. Originally, he too should have been like them, wearing a beautiful dress, strolling the streets with 2 or 3 close girlfriends, and having afternoon tea. But all of this was probably impossible to realize in this lifetime. Just as he was feeling deeply dejected, a man's voice called out to him, and his pupils instantly shrank as he froze in place, because that person was clearly calling him Kalia. But aside from a few people close to him, no one knew his true identity. He had never met this strange man before. He stammered as he spoke, "You've mistaken me for someone else." But the man said with complete certainty, "Impossible. You must be Jilin's younger sister," simply because the siblings looked far too much alike. Only after quite a while did Kalyan remember to ask who the other party was. But that person kept deliberately keeping him in suspense. "I am the friend who came to eat fruit sherbet with you." So they went to a fruit drink shop. Compared with Kalyan's restraint, the man seemed extremely excited, but he was nearly dying from the heat and suggested sitting on the outdoor terrace, only to be decisively refused by Kalyan. It was only because his gorgeous foreign attire was simply too conspicuous. But in Ian's eyes, Kalia dressed as a man was even more conspicuous. Kalyan instantly became angry and stressed that he was a boy and that his brother was only joking with him. But to Ian, who knew the truth, this was not important at all. After calming down, Kalyan thought of his brother again. Was his health all right? Of course. Jilin has always been waiting for your news. He said that he had never received a single reply from you. Actually, he also knew that the letters had all been intercepted by the Marchioness. But Jilin missed his younger sister far too much. That was why he asked me to be this messenger. You need to hurry up and eat so that I can go back, Kalia. Kalyan was very dissatisfied that he kept calling him by his real name and raised his hand to push away what he was feeding him. But when Ian saw this, he only became even more energized, calling out Kalia again and again. He simply could not stop. Before long, Jilin will return to Kosovo, and when that time comes, you can reply to him in person. As he spoke, he placed the letter into Kalyan's hand. Looking at the letter before him, a faint unease arose in his heart. If his brother returned in good health, where should he go then? Could he really become Kalia again? Looking at the girl opposite him, whose thoughts were in turmoil, Ian still lifted the corners of his lips. What a lovely young lady. Kalia is Kalyan. All right then, Kalyan, I invite you to Gear. As soon as I get back, I'll send an invitation. You must come. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in women's clothing." After saying that, he gently took Kalian's hand and performed a standard hand kiss. Kalian looked at the letter paper on the table and sank into thought. How exactly should he reply to the letter? Suddenly, a plate of exquisite pastries appeared before his eyes. It was Betty. She had come to deliver those 5 sets of formal clothes for the young master. She had also brought the one for Pepe. "I heard that you even had ice cream with a foreigner with an unusual hair color. Without me accompanying you, you should be even more careful when going out alone. Don't you know what happened to Miss Marilyn? You will be living in the capital in the future. When that time comes, if I'm not by your side and you run into danger, what should be done?" Seeing that Betty was truly worried, Kalian softly comforted her. "I gave Pepe clothes to thank her for accompanying me to the capital. Pepe must have had a hard time too." The one who always gave in first was Betty. She truly had no way to deal with her young master. At this moment, Kalian suddenly grew very curious about how exactly the Marquis household had found him 4 years ago. How the Marquis household found him 4 years ago clearly made Betty's hand pause as she poured tea. Why would young master suddenly ask about this? Because a servant ran into Laura, and she has now already been married off by Madame. The disappointment on Kalian's face was almost impossible to hide. Sometimes he also felt confused. Why did it have to be him, of all people? As it turned out, Jilin's life had been in danger at any moment back then. Anada's situation had also been very difficult. The people around them pointed fingers at the sick Jilin, and everyone was discussing the issue of the heir. The relatives all applied pressure, wanting Madame to adopt one of their sons. But once there was an adopted son, even if Jilin recovered his health, those covetous relatives would absolutely never let him go. So they found Kalia, simply because she could be discarded at any time. That was the truth. Jilin had already recovered and would be returning very soon. When that time came, he would be able to return to his original life. So he decided to tell Betty what he truly thought. He wanted to go find his mother. He wanted to reclaim the life that belonged to Kalia. He hurriedly ran out of the room, ignoring Betty's attempts to stop him. He took off his shoes and gently set them aside. Then he leapt forward and plunged into the water. This truth was simply too cruel for him. He did not want to think about it anymore. Only by soaking in the water could he obtain a moment of peace. Today, he was still just as beautiful. He really did want to escape from this place. But there was also one reason that made him unwilling to leave. What a pity. What a real pity. At this moment, a familiar male voice interrupted his thoughts. The instant he saw who had come, his pupils suddenly contracted. How could the young duke possibly be here? Claude looked at him with a half smile. "You really are very interesting. Kalian, is swimming your hobby?" As he spoke, he stood up and began taking off his clothes. "What is going on, Betty?" Betty shook her head repeatedly. She did not know either. It turned out that the young duke had come to visit Jilin, but had remembered the wrong day. And just at that moment, he happened to see Kalian swimming. "It's been a long time since I last swam, so I'll swim for a while too." Kalian's face instantly turned pale. The undergarment in the water was faintly visible. What would happen if he discovered it? Claude was utterly confused by his reaction, and without caring whether Kalian agreed or not, he dove straight into the water. The splashing water struck Kalian's cheek. When he opened his eyes again, "This is my first time swimming with you, Kalian." Soaking in the water, the undergarment inside was faintly visible. Kalian raised his hands fearfully and held them in front of his chest. This series of actions successfully caught Claude's attention. With one swift leap, he plunged into the water. When he opened his eyes again, Claude had already arrived behind him. "This is my first time swimming with you." Kalian was instantly at a loss. With a splash, he dove headfirst into the water. He had to get away immediately, but the pursuing Claude grabbed his hand. He turned back in confusion. What came into view was a beautiful smile Claude cast toward him. His heart immediately began pounding wildly. He struggled with all his strength to break free from Claude's hold, and in his panic accidentally opened his mouth. The intense discomfort forced him back up to the surface. Seeing the young master coughing and choking non-stop, Betty looked full of worry. But Claude laughed at his poor diving skills, and Kalian was instantly filled with anger. "It was because you suddenly grabbed me. Then I'll give you another chance." Kalian was not falling for it. He turned around and walked away, leaving Claude alone in the water, stunned. Betty worriedly draped a shawl over him. When he turned back, he saw that Claude had also come ashore and calmly walked past him as if nothing had happened. After sitting down on the camping mat, he let out a deep sigh. "Come sit and rest for a while, at least." Kalian obediently did as he was told. "In weather like this today, you don't need to wrap yourself up so tightly. You probably won't catch a cold." Kalian pressed his lips together. "I'm afraid of the cold. This feels more comfortable." What a strange guy. After throwing out that remark, he went to sleep on his own. Seeing this, Kalyan prepared to leave, but Claude stopped him. How about I don't sleep and keep you company instead? Stop fooling around. I'm not a child. You are a child. You're only 16. I know that. Yes, he was already 16, and Jilin would be back very soon as well. At that moment, Claude suddenly asked Kalyan about his future plans, because according to noble law, the second son cannot inherit any property. If you wait until after graduating from the academy to look for work, it will be too late. I'll figure those things out myself. Come work as a butler for the Ahal family. I can take you in. Kalyan was full of question marks, so all along, he had thought the young duke disliked him, but he also had things he wanted to do himself. Although he had not decided yet, it definitely would not be to become a butler. I'm not sure what you're up to, but you definitely won't be treated as well as the butler. How much money I make isn't important. What matters is being able to do what I truly want to do. When he said this, his gaze was astonishingly firm. For a moment, Claude did not know how to respond. At that moment, the surroundings were so quiet that only the rustling of leaves in the wind remained. Kalyan, stop talking. Wake me up in an hour, and you have to wake me up yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, he lay back down again. Claude really was strange. He had clearly asked him, yet refused to listen to him finish. I rode here on horseback, so I'm a little tired and need some sleep. Otherwise, you can lie down too. The beautiful smile Claude gave him made Kalyan's cheeks grow slightly warm. He bit his lip and said nothing. In any case, he would forget this place sooner or later. But here, one beautiful thing after another kept happening that made people unwilling to forget. Even while sleeping, he was frowning. I really don't know what he was thinking. Kalyan's hand, resting over his chest, paused slightly. Then he gently stroked Claude's head and saw the faint upward curve at the corner of the man's lips. He slowly withdrew his hand again. Kalyan became faintly melancholic. The one who had suggested sleeping was clearly Claude, but Kalyan himself also fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up again, she found herself already lying in bed. By then, it was already late. Pepe, what happened? Why am I here? It turned out she had fallen asleep outside, and Claude had carried her back. Her cheeks instantly flushed red, and her mind went blank. Fortunately, after bringing her back, Claude had gone to the capital. Otherwise, she truly would not have known how to face him. Soaking in the fragrant water, Kalyan remained absent-minded the whole time, worrying about her weight. When Pepe said she was not heavy at all, but rather light as a feather, she still could not feel happy. The next time they met, Claude would surely ask why a man could be so light. Being overly sentimental was originally a common problem among adolescent girls. In fact, Kalyan now looked more like a graceful young lady. Anyone with eyes could tell she was not a man. I heard that young Master Jilin has recovered his health. How much longer are you going to keep living like this? Pepe, that was far too presumptuous of you to say. Actually, Pepe was not wrong. Even if she wanted to hide it, she could not hide it forever. Prince Ian had once said that he looked forward to seeing her in women's clothing. Claude had also said that looking at her made him feel hungry. Even if it was for the sake of finding her mother and returning to an ordinary life, she could no longer keep entangling herself with those two men. Not long after, Jilin returned, and the moment they met, he lifted Kalyan high into the air. Brother, you've changed so much I can hardly recognize you. You've grown up too, Kalyan. It's really hard to believe that brother is actually this healthy now. But what Jilin said next made her freeze on the spot. Kalyan, you really look like a graceful young lady now. The Marchioness also returned with him this time. She merely looked coldly at the brother and sister. Kalyan stepped forward to greet her, but she turned and walked away. Kalyan, I have something to say to you. Come inside with me first. She swallowed nervously, filled with fear and helplessness, while Jilin beside her remained silent. He only tightly held her hand. Kalyan's eyes widened in shock. Let's go in. The afterglow of the setting sun made Jilin look especially tall. After being apart for so long, your relationship with Jilin is still this close. Have you been in contact privately? No, this is our first meeting in 4 years. So, you're going to the capital the day after tomorrow? Yes. Thanks to Mother's care, I've already fallen behind in quite a few classes. Tata speaks very highly of you. You've done very well, Kalyan. Now, you're also qualified to let Jilin call you his younger brother. Kalyan bit her lip, wanting to speak, but stopping herself. After you go to the capital, will you go look for your mother? Seeing that she did not speak, Anata asked again. How was she supposed to answer? She had lived disguised as a man for 4 years, and had also been her brother's substitute for 4 years. But now, her brother had recovered and returned. She had also decided to return to an ordinary life, and to search for her biological mother. But this was not an easy thing. Kalia had carried the name Kalyan, and had been active in noble society for a full 4 years. Many nobles knew her, and they all knew the name Kalyan. Even Princess Rosina had specially sent a letter because of her concern. To become her original self again overnight and make Kalyan completely disappear was obviously unrealistic. Anata had warned her long ago to live quietly, like a shadow. But at this point, it was not completely without a solution. Soon, Kalyan would be going to the capital to study. At that time, if she could pretend to be ill as much as possible, she could disappear from everyone's sight under the pretext of recuperation. After people gradually forgot her, they could hold Kalyan's funeral, and she could become Kalia again. Holding a funeral for a living person was absurd enough to leave one speechless, and Kalyan's emotions surged at that moment. But Anata said with a smile that she merely wanted to keep the promise she had made when she first brought Kalia to the Marquis's residence. But Kalyan's performance had far exceeded the madam's expectations, and because of that, her son Jilin had also recovered his health. So, I should completely return your freedom to you now, shouldn't I? But when she said this, there was a sinister smile on her lips. Seeing how hard Kalyan had worked all this time, Anata allowed her to attend her brother Jilin's engagement party. Because Jilin also hoped his sister could attend, and after completing the engagement ceremony, Jilin would return to Gyur. If that is the case, then I also have one request. Please forgive my mother. At that moment, Kalyan had already chosen to yield, but Anata had no intention of forgiving her mother. Don't you think this request is extremely rude? Kalyan, you actually dare ask me to forgive her. But before she could finish speaking, Kalyan interrupted her. If asking for forgiveness is rude, then what do the 4 years I spent living disguised as a man for my brother count as? Because he was worried about his sister facing their mother alone, Jilin had been silently standing guard outside the door the whole time. Naturally, every single word of this conversation fell into his ears. The reason I became Kalyan in the first place was to beg forgiveness for my mother. At this point, she finally could not hold back her humiliated tears. So, please forgive her. But even though she was already crying, Anata still had no intention of backing down, and only told her to get out. Just then, a pair of warm hands rested on her shoulders. Mother, enough. The one who came was her brother, Jilin. Strictly speaking, Kalia is also a member of the Bell family. Holding a funeral for a living person and treating family this way is simply too much. But Anata had never regarded Kalia as family. He had only come to the Bell family in order to become Jilin's substitute. And now his task was complete. Something useless should be thrown away. Afterward, the two of them broke into a fierce argument. But Kalyan did not want her brother to be caught in the middle and troubled, so she silently turned and left. Jilin loudly called out Kalia. Her hand on the door paused slightly. Brother, my name is Kalyan. After saying that, she left without looking back. At that moment, Kalyan felt wronged to the extreme. How could she even think of holding a funeral for a living person? These 4 years of living as Kalyan were not entirely fake. After going to the capital, she probably would never come back here again, but her heart still felt a trace of reluctance. At that moment, a figure appeared behind her. Pepe, don't come over. I want to be alone for a while right now. Today you don't look like a woman either, huh? That voice was obviously not the maid Pepe, but that strange man. Before she could react, the man had already walked to her side. We meet again, Kalia. Why are you crying here? Meanwhile, the Selby Marquis's residence was brightly lit. Today was the day of a banquet held to celebrate Marilyn's recovery. All the prestigious noble families had been invited. Even Princess Rosina had come by invitation. The venue was filled everywhere with congratulations on Marilyn's recovery. But Marilyn's gaze remained fixed on one person the whole time. Young Duke Claude, the man she secretly loved and longed for day and night. There were even rumors that the two were about to be married. Marilyn stepped forward and naturally linked her arm with the man's. But Claude rejected her without mercy. Since Miss is already well, then we will take our leave first. But the party had clearly not even officially begun yet. It turned out that his friend Jilin had returned, and they had already arranged to meet. But today was also the day of celebration for Marilyn's recovery. Unwilling to accept it, she wanted to keep Claude there. But the only response she got was the man's disgusted gaze. She did not want to make him angry. Helplessly, she could only admit that she had spoken out of turn. Thank you for your understanding. So Claude left after saying goodbye to the princess. The crown prince had always been well informed. I heard that young Marquis Jilin brought back a guest. It seems to be the third son of King Luang Sijio. Rumor has it that he is a war maniac. We absolutely cannot underestimate the barbarity of the people of Gyur. That prince is surely just like King Luang Sijio. If there is something he wants, he will obtain it at any cost. But it just so happened that such a foreign prince was praised to the skies by his friend Jilin. Just as the crown prince was handing Jilin a good person card, Claude, who had remained silent the whole time, suddenly spoke. He was the one who protected Jilin in Gyur. The young duke's attitude shocked the crown prince so much his mouth could practically fit an egg. How come even you are like this? This is practically sleeping with the enemy. Jilin is also a noble. He would not act based only on personal likes and dislikes. I hope you have not forgotten that you are nobles of the empire. But Ian was, after all, a prince of an enemy nation. That was an undeniable fact. And now, because of the mining rights to the diamond mines, conflict had already broken out in the neutral territory. If anything happened to Ian Cgo in the Empire, war would be unavoidable. But the Ian they were talking about was currently trailing after Kalyan, like a little puppy. "I'm here as a guest, Kalia. Why do you keep avoiding me? It really hurts my feelings."
"I'm not Kalia."
Actually, just a moment ago, Kalyan had already brought Ian back to the main hall, which was where a guest should stay. But Ian shamelessly said that he had come to see Kalyan and did not want to tour the estate. What kind of image is it for a prince of a country to chase a girl around everywhere? But the next second, Ian suddenly leaned his face very close to Kalyan's.
"Ian, call me Ian."
As he said this, a beautiful curve lifted at the corner of his lips. Kalyan truly was not good at dealing with this kind of person, so she could only obediently comply and softly say the man's name. Ian instantly became as happy as a big dog. "But I still have many things to do. If you keep following me like this, it will really trouble me." Originally, she had wanted to use this excuse to shake Ian off, but unexpectedly, that person directly said he wanted to help her. There was simply no reasoning with this person at all. It would be better to go find brother. But because she stepped on some leaves, her whole body fell backward, and she was caught steadily by Prince Ian behind her. Even heaven seemed to be helping him.
"Kalia."
Still not having come back to her senses, she answered instinctively. Seeing the smile on the man's face, she finally realized she had said the wrong thing.
"See?
"You really are Kalia." Kalyan stood up and pushed him away. "Honestly, you're completely hopeless."
Kalia."
Just then, a familiar male voice came from behind. When she turned around, she saw her brother staring at the two of them with a deeply displeased expression. "Ian, I clearly told you to wait for me at the guest house. This guy actually took advantage of my inattention to come flirt with my sister." Jilin stepped forward and pulled his sister behind him protectively. Kalyan also immediately put on an angry glare. The way the brother and sister presented a united front was practically identical. Seeing this, Ian quickly explained that he had just been a little bored, and it was because he had smelled a familiar fragrance that he happened to encounter Kalia. That pervert-like statement made Jilin shudder in disgust. "Are you some kind of beast? You're actually sniffing people out?" The man had even heard that this guy had secretly come to find his sister before, so he gently asked her whether he had harassed her. He was a prince of a nation after all. Did he not need any dignity, being accused to his face of harassing someone? But contrary to the expected answer, Kalyan not only did not say she had been harassed, she instead raised a brilliant smile. "He only ate ice cream with me." "Kalyan, are you an angel?" Ian's heart was practically melting from how adorable she was. Since his sister had said so, Jilin could not continue pressing the matter. Meanwhile, more distinguished guests arrived at the house. The Crown Prince and the young Duke. The Crown Prince had never thought very highly of the Kingdom of Cgo. "While you all go look for Prince Ian, I'll observe the stars together with lovely Kalyan." The moment those words came out, Claude immediately refused. "Your Highness must stay by my side." He was not at all comfortable letting the Crown Prince be alone with Kalyan. Although Kalyan was only Jilin's substitute, every time Claude saw her, he felt very happy and also found her very interesting. The Crown Prince's gossip-loving soul instantly ignited. A few days ago, Claude had suggested letting Kalyan come to the ducal residence to work as a butler, only to be flatly rejected on the spot. But that had not made him give up. Instead, it made him want even more to recruit Kalyan under his command. Kalyan was a rare talent in noble circles, compared with those fools who only relied on the family head's power while making no effort themselves. The difference was like heaven and earth. So how could he possibly not be tempted? After the two princes exchanged simple greetings, Claude behind the Crown Prince caught Ian's attention. "So, you are the future master of Dekasa?"
"Not yet."
"My father is still alive, but in the end, the one who will sit in that position will still be you, right?" The Crown Prince timely spoke up and stopped the childish clash between the two. But after Ian withdrew his gaze, his eyes fell on Kalyan. Being dragged into this sort of situation made him feel uncomfortable all over. Only when he heard that they were going somewhere else to talk did he quietly let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Madame didn't discover this time, or there would have been another vicious beating. The two childish men each had their own thoughts, and neither was willing to leave first. "Hey, you go first. I still have something to say to Kalyan." The moment those words came out, Kalyan instantly turned to stone. Jilin only felt one had become two. "His Highness is waiting for you." "That's right, let's talk another time." But another time was not the answer he wanted. Yet when Ian saw the troubled expression on Kalyan's face,
not only did he not do as asked,
he instead strode straight toward her. Seeing this, Kalyan was momentarily at a loss. Ian then solemnly explained to her, "You misunderstood, Kalyan. To me, you are the most important. You still haven't answered me. Why were you crying just now?" Claude was forcibly reduced to a background board just like that. Did these two people take him for thin air?
How irritating.
Just then, her brother stepped in to save the situation again. Prince Ian Seogyo, suddenly being called by his full name, was still quite intimidating. Ian quickly and tactfully said he was only joking. Only then did Claude leave in relief. Callian could feel that the young duke was obviously angry, and she could not help feeling a little guilty. Young Dukahal, Ian stroked his chin, deep in thought. For an androgynous man, two grown men were openly and secretly jealous of each other, and never missed a chance to casually diss one another between the lines. But right now, the person they cared about was not present. As the substitute for his older brother, Callian did not even have the right to sit at the table and eat, only because his mother feared that he would steal his brother Jilin's spotlight. But everyone present thought highly of Callian, so they asked why he was not there. The lady actually smiled and lied, saying that Callian was not feeling well and was resting. Because I am away from the estate all year round, Callian's health has also worsened quite a bit. Claude did not believe a single word of Anata's explanation. All he could think about was that Callian had cried just now. Actually, even if Callian appeared at a meal in this kind of setting, he would probably feel so sick that he would vomit or even faint. So that was why he had deliberately stayed away and not come, right? Today, he would probably only be able to make do with some candy for a meal. At that thought, the candy before his eyes suddenly caught his attention. Come here, take this to Callian Bell. Unexpectedly, Ian was also worried that Callian had not eaten properly. Tell him that not eating properly is a bad habit. This handsome gesture made even the crown prince look at him in a better light. If Callian's condition keeps getting worse, then this time I will take him to Gear. Hearing this, Anata was instantly terrified. She absolutely could not let Prince Ian disrupt her plans. Unexpectedly, Jilin also jumped in to add to the chaos. Thank you for your kindness. If his condition really worsens, then we will do as you say. In fact, Ian was not speaking casually. He was serious. In a place like this, a child with no ability to protect himself would find it hard to truly endure. Maybe it would even be better for him to go to Gear. I think this place is not suitable for Callian. What do you think? Claude, who was suddenly asked, was full of question marks. I'm asking about that piece of meat. That meat is from Gear. Without hesitation, Claude spat out all the meat he had just eaten. Please forgive my rudeness. Gear's food really does not suit the taste of people from the Empire very well. Is that so? As he said this, the corner of his mouth lifted into a meaningful smile. It does not even look very appetizing. It was not made from rotten meat, was it? At that point, the crown prince urgently stopped him. Only then did Claude stop talking. Sorry, I will excuse myself first. I will definitely attend the after-dinner banquet. At this moment, he did not want to see the person before him at all, trying every possible way to avoid me, yet chatting so enthusiastically with that foreigner. It really makes me furious. As soon as he came out, he happened to see a maid carrying meat. The maid was startled by Claude's sudden shout.
So these foods were meant to be sent to Callian.
But in his impression, compared with anything else, Callian liked sweets more. So an interesting idea immediately popped into his head. Take that away and bring the candy from the banquet. To think he wanted to use Gear's food to please Callian. It seemed he did not understand Callian at all. At that thought, his mood instantly turned from cloudy to sunny. Go get what Callian really likes. The maid carried the candy and knocked at Callian's door for quite a while, but there was never any response. Claude could not help but frown slightly. At this moment, in the back garden of the Marquis's estate, the maids were holding a farewell party for Callian. Everyone is very reluctant to see you go. Callian had felt like he was sitting on pins and needles every day in the estate, but without realizing it, he had also come to have so many people who cared about him. After you go to the capital, don't forget us either. Thank you for always treating us so well. Betty was like a mother. The one most unwilling to see Callian leave was her. So Callian hugged Betty tightly. Thank you. It was just like the eldest son of a family leaving home for a long journey for the first time. And Betty repeatedly reminded Callian of many things. Don't get hurt and don't wander outside alone late at night either. The kinder people are to you, the more you should keep your guard up, especially those who tempt you with food. You must be careful. Of course, the most important thing was still to find his mother. Encouraged, Callian was now full of confidence. This might be the last time he would ever see these people. Just then, a large bowl of candy was handed in front of him. He lifted his eyes in confusion, but the maid opposite him merely gave a respectful bow, then turned and left. Just as he was wondering who had sent it, a familiar back came into his sight. It was actually the young duke. Only then did he feel at ease and pick up the candy on the table. Actually, ever since he was little, he had always thought Claude was scary. It was hard to define this person in just one sentence. He always made people inexplicably nervous, afraid that if they were not careful, he would laugh at them. Sometimes he also liked playing pranks. He was like the scent of lavender. And sometimes he would also be inexplicably gentle to people. Kalyan picked up a piece of candy and put it into his mouth. The sweet taste instantly spread through his mouth. Honestly, I'm no longer a child who likes sweets. But the burning tips of his ears exposed what he was really thinking at this moment. Time quickly came to the next day. His older brother was the first to come see him off, but he looked utterly exhausted when he learned that their mother would not come to see him off. Although he had long since stopped expecting it, he still could not help feeling a little disappointed. Seeing this, Jilin pulled Kalyan into his arms. But considering the difference between men and women, Kalyan still pushed his brother away. Seeing an opportunity, Ian immediately pounced over and also wanted a hug from Kalyan. But the brother and sister directly ignored him. "Brother, please greet mother for me." "All right, let's meet in the capital later. Then I'll be going first." As soon as he turned around, he saw Ian standing there pitifully in a daze. Kalyan let out a heavy sigh, and only then reluctantly said goodbye to him as well. Only because Prince Ian always did things that put him in difficult situations. At this moment, a figure swept past quickly. It was His Highness the Crown Prince, and he looked even worse than Jilin. "I can't do it anymore. I will never drink Gear's strong liquor again. I'm taking this carriage. Kalyan, you go by automobile instead." Last night, he had still been wondering what on earth the four of them had been doing all night, and who would have thought they had all gotten completely drunk. "Are you still not getting in?" Just then, the young duke's voice suddenly rang out. Why was he the only one who looked radiant and full of energy? Seeing that Kalyan was still hesitating, Jilin gently patted his shoulder and encouraged him. "Hurry and get in. An automobile is much faster than a carriage. It will definitely be quite a good experience." "It's all right. His Grace the young duke is there." At this moment, Prince Ian let out a sneer. "Isn't that young duke the most dangerous one?" Saying strange things like this again, Kalyan simply did not want to pay attention to him. The next second, however, his hand was suddenly grasped tightly. Ian bent down close to his ear and reminded him in a low voice. "Men are all beasts. Kalia, you have to be careful." The sudden closeness made Kalyan's little face flush red at once. She sternly scolded Ian, but the man merely smiled lightly. How is a scene like this any different from flirting? Claude's jealousy was practically overflowing. "I hope you will stop wasting my time." Hearing this, Kalyan hurriedly apologized and got into the car. Claude was still verbally blaming the Crown Prince for drinking too much and delaying things, but his gaze kept unconsciously sneaking over to Kalyan. This time, he was really leaving. "Everyone, goodbye. You smell very sweet." It seemed those candies really were unusually sweet. On his first time riding in a car, the young master made a fool of himself. One sudden brake directly flung him forward because he had not fastened his seatbelt. Fortunately, the quick-eyed and quick-handed young duke grabbed him at once. Only then did he avoid getting hurt. But were these hands really the hands of a boy? They were far too slender. Afraid of being exposed, Kalyan immediately pulled his hand back. "I can eat a lot. The candy you gave me yesterday was especially sweet and especially sticky. It felt like it was almost sticking my mouth shut, but I still finished all of it." That way, it did make sense. Actually, there was one question that had always bothered Claude. In order to confirm it, he pulled Kalyan's hand back again and gently sniffed it in front of the tip of his nose. With that kind of action, and in that kind of atmosphere, Kalyan's little face immediately turned as red as a tomato. "How is the smell?" "Very good. You should sleep for a while. Even by car, we still have a long way to go." After what had just happened, the instigator could still be so calm. Kalyan widened his eyes, but not long afterward, several loud bangs startled Claude again. This kid Kalyan could run into trouble even just sitting in a car. He knocked his head this loudly and could still keep sleeping. Having no other choice, Claude gently pulled him over into his arms. Because whether it was when he was little or now, Kalyan always made him unable to resist wanting to take care of him. Maybe because they were too close, that sweet scent became even stronger. For a man to give off such a fragrance, it always made him unable to resist wanting to get closer. This is way too sweet. Just now too. This guy was obviously a man. Yet, he was almost too enticing. But just as he was lost in thought, a sudden sound pulled him back to reality. It turned out that a button on the clothes had fallen off. "It seems I've really gone mad. Or perhaps I am gradually going mad." A dangerous thought instantly rose in his heart. At this moment, Kalyan's lips carried a fatal temptation. After all, to make him keep drawing closer as if under a spell was really damnable. Only after getting out of the car did Kalyan finally wake up, touching the little bump on his forehead and thinking about it. And his mouth also felt damp. Could it be that he had drooled while sleeping? Could riding in a car really be this bumpy? Kalyan actually did not stay in the dormitory. This made Claude very unhappy. It turned out that his father was worried he would not adapt to dormitory life, so he arranged a place for him to stay outside. But with Kalyan's qualifications, the academy would definitely assign him the largest room, so there was really no need for him to move out and live elsewhere. When he heard Kalyan say that he was introverted, Claude curled his lips into a smile. He even teased him, saying that since you can be so close with a man you just met for the first time, It seems your introversion excludes foreigners. Actually, before that, Kalyan had already met Prince Ian, so he did not react for a moment. But in Claude's eyes, that reaction instead looked more like a guilty cover-up. He glared fiercely at the lying Kalyan, glaring so hard that Kalyan's whole body prickled. Only then did he finally realize that Claude was referring to Prince Ian. Kalyan was just about to explain something, but Claude mercilessly interrupted him. He had no desire at all to hear that foreigner's name from Kalyan's mouth. That wafting sweet fragrance from the young master always made the young duke unable to resist wanting to get close. He had finally managed to suppress the impulse in his heart, when with a clunk, the wheel rolled over a stone. This road is really too hard to travel on. Your Grace, are you all right? Unexpectedly, an accident actually brought the two of them closer. Claude hurriedly backed away, but his face was already red all the way to his ears. Even after returning to the residence, the image of kissing Kalyan just now still lingered in his mind for a long time. He had actually fallen for a man. Damn it, Kalyan. Actually, more than once. Claude had felt that Kalyan did not seem like a man at all. Even the place he chose to live was deliberately similar in style to his own. As long as it had anything to do with that guy, he would always be unable to stop himself from thinking wildly. Just then, the royal family sent over an official cooperation document. After only one glance, Claude's eyes widened abruptly. Meanwhile, Kalyan was also quietly planning something important. His wardrobe had long since been stuffed full of cute women's clothes. Because his current appearance was far too different from when he was little, he was afraid that his mother might no longer recognize him. The one thing he absolutely could not give up on was finding his mother. A few days later, it was finally the day Kalyan had to report in. As soon as the gatekeeper heard his name, he was instantly shocked and hurriedly ran into the academy to report it. Just by standing there quietly, Kalyan had already become the center of everyone's attention. The gazes cast at him from all around hardly stopped at all. Not long after, the principal and his group actually came out personally to receive him. Kalyan Bell, I am very glad to see you again. That strange man with the mustache from last time was also there, and once again stared at him with a lewd grin. It made his skin crawl. Fortunately, the principal stepped in to relieve the situation in time. Let's go straight to the examination hall first. Tater has praised you quite a lot. Everyone is very curious about your exam results. On the way to the examination hall, the surroundings were full of noise. So, he's Belle? How can a man be so delicate looking? Suddenly, a familiar figure blocked the way. The moment he saw who it was, Kalyan was immediately very happy, since the last time he met Claude. Yet when faced with his greeting, the young duke actually turned his head away. This sudden avoidance filled Kalyan's head with question marks, until he walked into the examination hall. The discussion around him still had not stopped. Did you see? He's really beautiful. How is his figure so petite? I heard he's an illegitimate child. Not one of these words escaped Claude's ears. Hello, young duke. You saw it too, didn't you? I haven't seen him for 4 years, and he still looks just as disgusting as ever. I used to think he didn't look like a man. Looking like that, who would think he's a man? The blonde-haired boy completely failed to notice that the young duke's face had already twisted in anger, and kept chattering on, mocking Kalyan as disgusting, saying that his whole body gave off a vulgar aura and that at a glance he looked like an illegitimate child brought back from outside. To actually let that kind of person enroll, Marquis Bell really has no regard for his reputation. Hearing this, Claude finally could not endure it any longer and stood up to glare angrily at Viscount Torin. Only then did Torin realize that he had spoken far too crudely. Before long, you may very well not be able to keep that tongue of yours. The moment these words came out, Torin broke into a cold sweat from fright. If you want to keep your tongue, then stop wagging it behind people's backs. A mere viscount actually dares to make irresponsible remarks about the family affairs of Marquis Bell, who is deeply favored by the emperor. I think you simply have no brain at all. Could it be that your head is full of livestock dung? Otherwise, how would you dare discuss the private affairs of a marquis's household? After being scolded like this, Torin's face had long since turned red with shame. As if unconvinced, he clenched his fists and took the initiative to admit that he had indeed spoken out of turn first. But with Kalyan looking like that, wouldn't he become prey for those who fancy men? That remark, however, reminded him of something. I will remember your concern very clearly, being eyed by men who like men and treated as prey. Your imagination is truly impressive. After throwing out those words, he walked straight into the examination hall. Unexpectedly, the moment he entered, he saw Eddie standing in front of Kalyan. As Claude drew closer step by step, the expression on Eddie's face became clearer and clearer. It seemed Torin's worries were not entirely without reason. Simply because his looks were too delicate, the young master was criticized on his very first day of school. He was even targeted by a teacher with a bad reputation. Looking at that offensive wandering hand, the young duke's anger instantly rose to its peak. When he used to study under teacher Tater, Kalyan had always felt that every subject was interesting, so he began to look forward to life at the academy. But after receiving the test paper, he felt very uncomfortable. This was nothing like an exam at all. Kalian's origins were already unclear, and people were constantly gossiping about his identity. These questions were practically like a trial of whether he was qualified to become a noble, and whether they should accept him into noble society at all. If this was what the academy was like, then he had probably expected too much from this place. Soon the exam ended. Eddie collected his paper. The first thing Kalian did after finishing the exam was go find Claude. At that moment, the other party was staring coldly at Eddie Kirkon. The instant he turned back and saw Kalian, Claude turned his head away once again. Kalian could not help but feel his heart tighten. What exactly was wrong with him? The group of teachers gathered around Kalian's test paper, their faces full of disbelief. Unexpectedly, he had gotten a perfect score. This was the first perfect score since Jilin Bell. As expected, it was the same bloodline. Everyone was full of praise for Kalian, because he had already decided to live off campus. The only thing left now was to choose a grade and a class. I think 9th grade suits you very well. Those words came from Eddie Kakon because 9th grade was exactly what he was in charge of. That was not too bad. There was no need to decide immediately, fortunately. It would be enough to decide within this week. The principal was looking for someone to show him around the academy. Claude, who had been avoiding him the whole time, voluntarily stepped forward instead. As you know, I have been waiting for Kalian to enroll all this time. Those words made Kalian's heart pound wildly. He had not expected that what the principal said back then had actually been true. The next second, his slender waist was pulled into someone's arms. Not only that, Claude also drew Kalian a little closer to his side. And so, Kalian walked out of the classroom stiffly like that. The Crown Prince's gossip-loving soul instantly burst into flames. When they arrived somewhere with no one around, Claude immediately put on a completely different expression. He warned Kalian that he absolutely could not go to 9th grade. As for the exact reason, he had no intention of explaining it. In short, you absolutely cannot go to 9th grade. But Kalian kept chasing him with questions. Eddie Kakhan, the teacher in charge of 9th grade, has a terrible reputation. Didn't you see something in his eyes? Kalian looked full of disdain. That's it? I thought you were going to say something serious. Don't you understand what that means? Your Grace, young Duke, I'm a student. I have no interest in rumors about professors. Right now, he simply had no energy left to care about anything else. He only wanted to level up as soon as possible. His brother had already returned, and Madam could not keep him here forever. He only wanted to find his mother as soon as possible and did not want any more trouble added to his life. As long as the professor's sexual orientation is not a problem. A figure with overwhelming pressure instantly loomed over him. Not a problem? Is that really what you think? Kalian thought Claude was just getting angry. Rather than dwell on this, he had actually heard that there was a super huge horse ranch at the academy. Don't change the subject. Go to 8th grade. Going straight to 9th grade is too rushed. If you enter 9th grade before adapting to academy life, you'll spend the entire next year buried in books. It would have been fine if he had just explained it properly from the start. Claude tilted his head and let out a whistle. The next second, a horse came galloping toward the two of them. Kalian had just raised his hand, about to greet it, when Claude lifted a hand to stop him. It will bite you. So this horse would only get close to its own master. But in the blink of an eye, he saw the look of anticipation on Kalian's face. Do you want to ride it? But the next second, he was immediately refused. Those tightly pressed lips were glistening, and it made him recall those beautiful memories again. Seriously, doesn't he have any self-awareness at all? The suddenly shortened distance made Kalian's eyes go wide in shock. Why, Your Grace? Young Duke, there's something on your lips. What is it? Let's tour the academy another time. The moment he turned his head away, the tips of his ears had already turned red. At that moment, the household guards came looking for them. Claude quickly sent Kalian away. His Majesty the Emperor said that if the Duke family's private soldiers were incorporated into the capital security force, then Your Grace, young Duke, could personally take charge of commanding them. The criminal who harmed Miss Marilyn probably has not fled far yet. The person is very likely hiding in Ruber. We must find someone who is very familiar with the roads and act tonight at once. After 4 years, the young master finally put on women's clothes again. He had to hurry and find his mother. While he was hesitating over whether this hair color would be too conspicuous, the maid Peppa thoughtfully reminded him that so many years had already passed. If even his hair color had changed, how could his mother possibly recognize him? Hearing that, Kalian finally felt at ease enough to head out. He hired a carriage. Please wait for me on the north side. I'll come out from there. Unexpectedly, a noble young lady was actually so familiar with the roads in the slums. After carefully instructing the driver to make sure to wait until he came back out, Kalian set foot on the road home with a nervous heart. Just a little farther ahead, and he would arrive. As long as he turned that corner, he would be able to see the mother he had longed for day and night. Kalian ran excitedly toward his mother. Who would have thought that he would crash into someone at the corner instead? With a bang, He slammed straight into the other person's arms. The strong impact made him fall backward uncontrollably. At the critical moment, someone caught him tightly in their arms. He was still feeling relieved that he had not fallen, when Claude above him was already too shocked to speak.
Kalyan?
Hearing that familiar voice, Kalian's heart instantly skipped a beat. The moment he looked up, he met the young duke's disbelieving eyes. Why was Claude here? Kalian could not react for a moment, and under Claude's repeated calls, he suddenly turned around and pulled up his hood to cover his face. The young duke's sudden appearance made his whole body tremble in fear. If Claude discovered his true identity, the consequences would be unimaginable. But in the next second, the man apologized in a low voice. "My deepest apologies. I mistook you for someone else, miss." At this moment, Claude even began to wonder whether there was something wrong with his own mind. How could this woman possibly be Kalian? Faced with Claude's endless questions, Kalian merely shook his head lightly and did not say a single word. If this continued, sooner or later, he would give himself away. Kalian kept backing away in fear, but the young duke still refused to let him go, pressing forward step by step. He lowered his head, wanting to see this woman's face clearly. "Can't you speak?" He had not expected that his clumsy acting had actually fooled the man. As if grabbing hold of a life-saving straw, Kalian nodded frantically.
"So you can understand me."
"If you're lost too, then come with me." On one side was the lost Claude, and on the other was the mother Kalian had been yearning for. Very soon, Kalian carefully noticed that Claude had been leaving marks on the walls all along the way. It seemed he really was lost. What should he do? He could not just leave him here and ignore him. After hesitating again and again, Kalian finally gathered his courage, ran in front of Claude and spread his arms, then pointed in the direction of the exit, signaling for the man to follow him. In the end, he still chose to lead Claude out first. The woman before him was obviously very familiar with the roads of Rubur. "Are you a local?" But Kalian still gave no response at all. Before long, they arrived at the agreed place. Thinking he had been deceived, Claude's expression suddenly darkened. "Hey, you're pretending to be mute, aren't you?"
Who exactly are you?
If he was exposed here, then everything would be completely over. Thinking that this might be a trap, Claude gently placed his hand on his sword. Who would have expected that in the very next second, the woman would directly abandon him and run off? This sudden escape caught Claude completely off guard. Kalian quickly jumped onto the carriage, and even the driver was startled by the scene before him.
"What?"
"Miss, could you be a criminal?"
"No."
"If anyone asks where I got on the carriage, tell them you picked me up south of Lionbridge, then take me to the front of the St. Matthew statue. What a dangerous young lady you really are." After taking the money, the driver finally drove away, and just like that, Kalian escaped smoothly. Claude's personal guards also arrived belatedly, unexpectedly. Even he had gotten lost, and they had only found this place by following the marks left behind by the young duke. "Help me investigate the carriages that crossed the bridge tonight." It was a dark green Landau carriage. "I've finally found the guide we were looking for." The young master sneaked into the slums at night, only to unexpectedly run into the young duke at a corner. Fortunately, his clumsy acting was not seen through. In the end, he returned home safely despite the scare. But even so, Kalian was still so worried that he stayed awake all night. He had clearly been just a tiny bit away from reaching it, yet he had happened to lose focus at exactly that moment. The maid Peppa burst and flustered. She immediately started tidying up Kalian's room. "Young master, now is not the time to be daydreaming. Please get ready quickly. His Grace the young duke has arrived." When Kalian timidly went downstairs, Claude had already been waiting for a long time. "Why are you so slow?" "Sorry, I didn't sleep well." "Why did you come so early? What do you think?" "I'm not your Grace the young duke. So how would I know what you're thinking?" Kalian's reply successfully amused Claude. Being watched while eating made him feel uncomfortable all over. Because he really had no appetite, Kalian ate in tiny bites. This made Claude particularly concerned. "You don't need to be so restrained. You can eat a little more. I'm taking you out with me."
Jilin asked me to.
He repeatedly reminded me to take his adorable younger brother Kalian and help him get familiar with life in the capital. "But your Grace, young duke." Before he could finish speaking, the man interrupted him. "Call me Claude. Don't call me your Grace anymore. I don't want to hear it." Hearing that, Kalian coughed lightly twice to ease the awkwardness.
"What?
You don't like it?" Kalian hurriedly said no.
It's not that I don't like it."
"Then eat. Fill your stomach first, and then we'll go out." "I advise you to eat a little more, Kalian." Before long, they appeared in the busiest part of the city center. The two handsome young men walked side by side, drawing frequent stares from passers-by. Remember this road. When locals give directions, they all use Cohen Bank as a landmark. For someone who was going straight into 9th grade, memorizing a bit of road like this should have been easy. But Kalian was not listening at all. He muttered to himself in a low voice. "I've heard of this place, too. 7 kilometers northeast of Cohen is the academy, and 3 kilometers away is the Imperial Palace. After that, a silence fell between them. Claude himself could not figure out what exactly his feelings for Kallian were, that they could make him become this ridiculous. He had been attracted to a man, had even kissed him, and yet had called out Kallian's name to a woman. He had never expected himself to make such a low-level mistake, and he felt deeply unwilling to accept it. "Aren't you coming?" The moment he raised his eyes, he saw Kallian, who seemed to be glowing all over, smiling at him brilliantly. This unfamiliar feeling, in which impulse overpowered reason, made him very unhappy. All day long, Kallian was in an especially good mood. The people of Etail looked very relaxed, and everyone seemed to be living quite comfortably. Where there is sunlight, there will be shadows. The brighter the light, the deeper the darkness. Everything follows this kind of rule. Don't jump to conclusions so easily. But Kallian, who had walked out from the darkest place, had a different opinion. People living in darkness may not necessarily know that they are living in darkness. Perhaps not knowing would actually make them happier, because happiness itself is relative. When people see others who are different from them and better than they are, they feel unhappy. But if they know nothing from the very beginning, they will not feel unhappy. Instead, they will feel that such a life is only natural, and then satisfaction or dissatisfaction would not even come into question. These deeply empathetic words left Claude unable to refute him for a moment.
"Kallian."
Claude suddenly spoke, startling him slightly. "Relax your mind for now. We still have one more place to go." As soon as he finished speaking, a jar full of candy was tossed into Kallian's arms. Sure enough, Kallian really liked it. Sure enough, he's still just a child. He was soothed in an instant. Hearing that, Kallian angrily explained, I just like sweet things. Don't always treat me like a child." "I'm not treating you like a child, but you are young." "Then your grace the young duke isn't that much older than I am, right?" Claude was instantly choked speechless. He could only simply change the subject. "We've seen the light. Now, let's go experience the darkness. We're going to Ruber, entering from the northern entrance." Hearing this, Kallian's heart instantly fell into chaos. Could it be that what happened in Ruber last night had been discovered? All along the way, Kallian felt deeply uneasy. Going to Ruber so suddenly might have already made Claude suspicious of him. After hesitating again and again, she finally decided she could not just sit around and wait to die. "Is the Ruber you mentioned the place I know?" Unexpectedly, Claude asked back what kind of place Ruber was in his understanding. Kallian shook her head repeatedly, her face full of resistance. "What else could it be? I heard that it is a place that must never be approached. One should not even entertain the thought of going in." But that explanation did not convince Claude, because from Kallian's room, Ruber could be seen just across the Leon River. Unexpectedly, even such a subtle detail had been noticed by Claude. Now, no matter what, she could only keep pretending to be clueless to the very end. Kallian suddenly put on a look of extreme fear. "Really? That dark place really is Ruber? I see." Not long after, the carriage arrived at their destination. This place was the Empire's mistake, and also the Empire's shame. People also called Ruber Etir's trouble. But at this moment, Kallian's mind was filled with nothing but anxiety. Claude was most likely testing him now. So he lied to Claude and said that he was very afraid. "It smells terrible here. I feel a little nauseous. I don't want to look anymore. Let's go back quickly, all right?" But Claude clearly had no intention of letting her off so easily. "Even if this is an abandoned place, people still live here. Isn't this exactly what you called the dark shadow born beneath the light?" Kallian was panicking badly inside. At this moment, she could not respond in any way and had to pretend she knew nothing. Suddenly, the big boy in front of him began trembling violently. "I want to go back. I'm really scared, okay?" His voice had already taken on a sobbing tone, and his eyes were brimming with tears. That appearance made Claude's heart tighten slightly. In the end, he still gave in to Kallian and agreed to his request. On the way back, Kallian did not say a single word and only lowered his head to fiddle with his fingers. It seemed he had really been frightened. "But why do I always feel that you know Ruber very well?" The moment those words came out, Kallian broke out in 2 drops of cold sweat. He swore that he had never come here and had never gone inside, but all he got in return was Claude's cold expression. Did he really believe him? He was truly impossible to read. Just as he was thinking that, Claude suddenly turned his head back. Kallian stiffened straight at once, like a guilty thief caught in the act. "I have a dinner appointment, so I'll just take you home directly." To him, this was undoubtedly the most pleasant thing Claude had said all day. He immediately let out a sigh of relief. But Claude became unhappy instead. If a person is always the same, that is boring too. Those inexplicable words left Kallian full of confusion. "Are you really that happy? Every time I say we're going back, you always look especially happy." "I see." The bewildered Kallian, in order to coax Claude into a better mood, kept desperately searching for reasons to explain himself the whole way. Before long, they arrived at Kallian's residence. She had clearly already said goodbye to Claude, but unexpectedly, the man walked straight past her toward the back. "Before the carriage comes, I'll impose here for a while." The moment those words were spoken, Callian felt as if he had been struck by lightning from a clear sky, and even Claude was speechless at that expression. "Can you stop making that kind of face? Being with you always makes me feel like a villain, you know?" He immediately realized that he had indeed gone a bit too far, and scratched his cheek as he apologized to Claude. Scratching his cheek, he apologized to Claude. "Only you would dislike me so openly." "I am not openly disliking you." "Then you mean you dislike me in secret?" At that moment, the horse nearby drew his attention. "It seems your house has a guest. Or should I say, an uninvited guest has come?" The moment he stepped inside, Callian sensed that something was wrong. The maids were standing neatly in a row, as if waiting for him to return. Callian mouthed to the maid, asking who had come from a very distant place. Before the maid could finish speaking, Claude unexpectedly gave the answer first. "A guest from Gear, I see." Claude stared at the casual and lazy visitor on the sofa, and his expression instantly darkened. His face was full of displeasure. "Prince Ian Seigio." Hearing that, Ian slowly stood up. "Oh my, isn't this young Duke Claude a haul?" From the way he stretched, it was obvious he had already been here for a long time. Callian was so shocked that the hair on his body stood on end. "Your Highness, why are you here?" Hearing Callian call him, Ian smiled especially brightly. That handsome face looked especially irritating in someone's eyes. Seeing that the young Duke had absolutely no intention of leaving, Callian quietly reminded him that it was almost dinner time. But Claude shot him a cold glare. So Claude did not like Callian calling him young Duke. "Let's bring the guest to my villa instead. I won't feel at ease leaving the two of you here together." Callian looked completely baffled as he asked blankly, "What is the problem with that?" The very next second after asking that question with his head lowered, the candy in his arms was snatched away by Claude. "I don't want to see you reeking of sweetness all over anymore." He truly had no idea what kind of temper this person was acting up over again. The way the two of them bickered looked especially irritating in Ian's eyes. The next second, he suddenly walked over and gently rested his chin on Callian's shoulder.
"Stop dawdling.
"Let's hurry and go have a proper meal. I've waited for you all day, and I'm starving to death." Callian immediately told Ian to move away. He also glanced guiltily at Claude. Unexpectedly, the other party had already walked to his side. He pulled Callian over in one motion. "Let me entertain your highness instead." Callian has only just arrived in a tier, so he has no spare mind to entertain guests right now. But Ian absolutely refused. He only wanted to stay with Callian. Because the journey had been too tiring, he planned to spend the entire day curled up on the sofa with Callian and had no desire to go out at all. Those outrageous words directly made a drop of cold sweat appear on Callian's forehead. "So you should go back." The scene shifted, and Claude had already appeared at the dinner gathering he had arranged. But he suddenly caught sight of the daughter of this household, and immediately thought of Callian. That fellow always made him restless. So before he even had the chance to take a single bite of food, he hurriedly rushed back. The driver asked him where he wanted to go, and unexpectedly, to Callian's house slipped right out. The driver was so shocked that his eyes widened. "I misspoke." To the villa. Thinking back to just now, Callian had stood between the two of them. "Ian, I don't want to roll around on the sofa with you. Also, young Duke Claude, I will send His Highness the Prince to the Marquis's residence. So please go back first." The moment he thought of how Callian had called him not Ian Seigio but simply Ian, he became inexplicably irritated. After all these years, Callian had always addressed him only as young Duke. That damned prince must definitely have ulterior motives toward Callian. At that moment, his knight subordinate, Avon, arrived. There was finally a result to the matter the young Duke had previously asked him to investigate. There was only one coachman who drove the green landau carriage that night. A noble young lady got out in front of the statue of St. Matthew. As for what happened after they parted, he did not know. But the only noble residence nearby belonged to Claude's family, and he remembered that the villa had not received any guests that night either. That being the case, it could only mean the coachman was lying. Meanwhile, Callian stared at the candy and simply could not make sense of it no matter how he thought about it. Even Ian told him to eat properly and cut down on sweets, but he really had not eaten that much. "Do you want one?" This sudden feeding was exactly what Ian had been hoping for. Holding Callian's hand, he accepted the feeding in an excellent mood, and during it, the tip of his tongue lightly brushed Callian's finger. As if still unsatisfied, he even took that hand and kissed it once more. Callian's little face instantly turned completely red. Please mind the dignity of the royal family. Just because his hand was kissed once while feeding him, the young master was so frightened that he kept retreating. He even urged the maid to quickly bring a towel, and he accused a prince of a nation of doing something so disgusting. Just as he was trying to get away, he was stopped by Ian again. Now that there was finally no one else disturbing them, he wanted to have a proper talk with Callian. So, after Ian repeatedly pleaded, Callian still sat down unwillingly. "Young Duke Claude doesn't know your woman?" Unexpectedly, such a blunt question was the very first thing he asked. Callian reminded him to be careful, because walls have ears. But Ian paid no attention at all to Callian's feelings, and continued pressing him, asking how long he planned to live under this identity. Seeing Ian's serious expression, Callian could only answer patiently, "I don't know." The next second, Ian suddenly moved closer. It turned out that his imperial father hoped he could form a marriage alliance with a noble of the Cayenne Empire. Without question, this was the easiest form of diplomacy. Hearing that, Kellyan thought the other party wanted him to help introduce someone. Who would have thought that he would be firmly denied by the other party? Because he planned to formally propose marriage to Marquis Belle. What followed was another stretch of silence between the two. Coming back to his senses, Kellyan quickly demanded to know whether he had gone mad. But you are clearly a woman. How about getting engaged next year? Hold a formal social ball, return to the social circle, and appear as Kalia Belle? Or is it that you already have a man you like? All of a sudden, Ian's gaze turned sharp. Could it be young Duke Claude Hall? His thoughts having been struck directly, Kellyan hurriedly denied it. But Ian was not flustered. There was still a year's time anyway. He could let Kellyan completely escape that which like Marchioness. Unexpectedly, Kellyan still refused, because he knew very clearly that he was not a real noble, and disappearing without a trace was the most correct choice. But Ian, who did not know the truth, still refused to give up and earnestly tried to persuade him to agree. Suddenly, Kellyan sprang to his feet. Proposing to someone you've only met 3 times is far too abrupt. And besides, right now she only wants to properly be the Belle family's second son. Ian, fine then. In that case, you'll only be able to hold a funeral. Kellyan froze completely when he heard that. Were you eavesdropping? A graceful Marchioness ought to speak more quietly. Could it be that I was the only one who heard? The Marchioness's way of thinking is truly frightening, but I do not want that either. I don't want to be dragged into political games like diplomacy or marriage alliances. Unexpectedly, Ian's next words shocked him into standing there speechless. This is not some complicated issue. I am simply captivated by you. That is all. So, how about using 1 year to get to know each other? As soon as those words came out, Kellyan unconsciously tightened his grip on the candy jar. Ian's step-by-step pressing approach made him feel annoyed. Just as he was overwhelmed and at his wit's end, Ian told him that Jilin would arrive in 10 days. And before that, they would be alone together. When he said this, the smile on his face remained dazzlingly bright. The next day, Kellyan officially went to the academy for classes, still attracting quite a lot of attention on the way. At this moment, he only felt that this body seemed no longer to belong to him. Ever since hearing the terrible news that he would be alone with Ian for 10 days, he had been so troubled that he had not been able to sleep all night. He had to hurry and write to his brother, telling him to come back as soon as possible. At that moment, a figure silently came up behind him. It was that forgetful Viscount Torin again. This time, Kellyan had only one person by his side, which was just right for Torin to try to regain face. The moment they met, he began belittling Kellyan, saying he was nothing more than an insignificant imitation. He even slandered him by saying that he had only gotten the academy's admission notice by relying on a pretty face like a woman's. Torin, you're only a first year. You'd better not go against me, a 9th year. Otherwise, you will only tarnish the reputation of Marquis Belle's family. You know it yourself too, don't you, Kellyan Belle? You are the shame of the Marquis family. It seemed Torin's information was truly very out of date. A beautiful hand lightly landed on the shoulder of the person who had come, and he responded word by word. I have already received the Marquis' approval. If you disregard me, may I take it to mean that you are slandering the Marquis? Speaking carelessly about the Marquis like that, it seems the young Viscount is quite confident in bearing the consequences. Also, I am not a first year, but a 9th year. We will be seeing each other often from now on. Since you dislike me so much, then please make sure to stay out of my way yourself in the future. Just 2 hours earlier, Kellyan had been called to the principal's office because he had claimed in front of Viscount Torin that he was a 9th year. Even though Claude had repeatedly warned him not to choose the 9th year, Kellyan could only go against the young Duke's wishes. The sudden appearance of a military officer made him somewhat flustered. After all, having a conflict with a current student right after enrolling could indeed possibly bring in the guard unit. At that moment, the officer suddenly spoke, startling him. Has your voice always been this thin? Kellyan froze. I want to know whether you can use weapons like a dagger or something similar. I'm not skilled, but I know a little. It turned out that this officer had come to select a suitable person. In other words, a man who could disguise himself as a noble young lady. Recently, someone had been specifically targeting noble young ladies and attacking them. Now the nobles were terrified and did not dare let the daughters in their households go out at all. So the criminals had begun targeting even younger children. In order to catch the real culprit, the military wanted to find bait and lure the snake out of its hole. But everyone in the combat unit was a burly man. They needed to find a boy, which was why they had come to the academy. And Kellyan's appearance happened to fit the requirements. When the time came, he would only need to appear at the designated locations. For example, the library near Ruber, the theater, or the train station. At this moment, Kellyan still could not make up his mind. But in the end, the balance in his heart still tipped toward refusal.